We're going to talk about Keir Starmer decriminalising dope with Jack Elsom in a moment. It's a big story on page 10, big column this morning by Mercy Muroki. But first, Jack, a very good morning to you. I just want to mention this amazing front page you've got on the serial killer Rose West, the last days of Rose West. A fascinating tale. I was old enough to cover the trial and be around when Rose West and Fred West were arrested. She's now a woman of 71, rarely leaves her jail wing, increasingly frail and isolated. And extra interest, I suppose, in this because of this new Netflix series that's coming up.
Well, morning, Mike. You're totally right. On the front page of The Sun today and a big spread on the inside pages, my colleague Julia Atherley has absolutely incredible insight and detail into the life that Rose West, that awful serial killer, currently lives. She's spoken to various people who have been in and out of the prison, who have watched Rose West up close, and the details are remarkable, to the fact that she eats 2 cans of tomato soup for breakfast every day and spends most of her life knitting and watching various nature programs on the TV. It actually sounds quite cushy for someone who's only one of 4 women to be given whole life orders, and obviously I think murdered 10 people along with her husband Fred back in the 70s and 80s. Yeah. Absolutely ghastly woman, but it does seem at the moment that she's very frail indeed.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating. A great story, front page of The Sun, and a spread inside as well. Let's talk about Mercy's piece in page 10. Mayor of London Sadiq Khan, yesterday we were just talking about it with Peter Hitchens, has backed a proposal. She calls it a dopey proposal for his own drugs commission to decriminalise cannabis in London. I mean, luckily he doesn't actually have the power to make it happen, and he's already been roundly criticised by several law enforcement leaders who have said, absolutely not. In fact, if anything, they should make it a more dangerously classed drug.
Yeah, and this story seems to come around every year, usually with Sadiq Khan, the one banging the drum for it, probably because he wants to distract from all the other problems going on in London, not least sky-high crime on his watch. In The Sun today, like you said, Mercy Muroki puts the case against decriminalising drugs. One, because she says, what sort of message would this send to the public? Essentially that drugs are okay. And she cites various studies showing that actually they are not, whether it's in psychosis or car-related accidents or obviously gateways onto harder stuff. But I think that Mark Rowley probably makes the best point, which she mentions in her piece, which is that decriminalising drugs wouldn't stop any kind of gang warfare. You still wouldn't be able to buy them in a shop, and therefore what it would do is just expand the demand for drugs, and mean that more people end up killing themselves on the street in the name of drug supply. So a pretty dangerous proposal all round. I would say I think the public are pretty genuinely split on this issue, and polling shows that it's a pretty big divide. But I think a lot of people, not just in London, because we seem to sort of put this in the London bubble where probably there is more use of marijuana than the rest of the country, would be a bit uncomfortable with people smoking spliffs on the side of the street.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, many people, and I'm one of them, walking around London, you'd say, well, has it been decriminalised already? Because, as Peter Hitchens says, he's fairly certain that you wouldn't find anyone who's been sent to prison for sort of what you might call personal possession of the drug in the last 20, 30 years.
He's totally right. And Peter Hitchens, to his credit, has been going on about this for a long time now. And he's completely right in the sense that we have decriminalised cannabis in all but name. If you smoke a spliff on the side of the road, you will never be arrested or even charged by officers, despite the fact that it remains an illegal activity. And so it does seem the police have just totally given up with this. No ministerial direction whatsoever. It just seems that over the past 30 years, we've stopped enforcing our drugs laws. And Peter Hitchens is completely right about that. And as Mercy says in the piece today, it's almost like we've just surrendered, and decriminalising would just be giving up totally. There are many people in this country that want to see us actually enforce our drug laws as they are written in statute, not as they are practiced at the moment by police who seem to just sort of turn a blind eye to lots of these things.
No, of course. And Sadiq Khan is a bit of a thorn in the side of Labour at the moment, isn't it? Because he doesn't always agree with Keir Starmer. He takes positions on things, and he was described to me yesterday as the sort of Gary Lineker of the Labour Party, which I thought was quite good.
Yeah, totally. I mean, he's pretty opposed to much of what the leadership does on various things. He takes a much harder line on Israel Gaza. He's obviously a complete Europhile, even probably more so than Keir Starmer, who likes to sometimes parade as a born again Brexiteer, but it rules out things like rejoining the single market. Whereas Sadiq Khan is very, very vocal in saying that he wants to rejoin the customs union, single market, essentially rejoin the EU in all but name. And so, yes, he's very much sort of the annoying stepbrother of the Labour Party, who is constantly undermining the Labour leadership. Like you said, a thorn in the side of them, and he's obviously got a mandate to do so, or he thinks he does anyway. And so he's not going to shut up for a very long time. And I could say that there are people in Downing Street that get pretty annoyed with that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Another great story in The Sun this morning by Martina Bett, your colleague, political correspondent. Drought of Order. This story from the government that we may run out of water in 10 years' time because we've got so much mass immigration that we haven't got enough to go around.
Absolutely extraordinary story. And I think for the first time in a long time, the government have actually admitted that rapid population growth, as they put it, which is mass immigration because births and deaths have essentially cancelled each other out for the past few years, whereas we've been importing a huge amount of migrants, has led to an incredible strain on public services, not least the water supply. And it's got so bad that Steve Reed, the Environment Secretary, is having to essentially seize control of the planning process to force through these two new reservoirs. We haven't had a reservoir built in this country in about 30 years. And in that time, about 9 million people have been added to the population. And as the Sun Leader column says today, many people in the pro-immigration lobby for years have been saying that immigration is good for public services. Well, this goes to show that actually, and even Labour ministers are now waking up to the fact that it has put enormous strain on much of the infrastructure, the key infrastructure, which we rely on in this country.
Yeah, absolutely right. Great to talk to you, Jack. Thanks very much indeed. Chief Political Correspondent at The Sun, Mercy Muroki there on page 10, writing about the situation with Sadiq Khan and why he's a dope for trying to make dope actually decriminalised, because nobody in their right mind would want to see that happening. His argument for doing it, of course, is that it will improve relations between the police and various ethnic minority communities. Well, I'd say that's pretty unlikely, to be honest. The police have done everything they can to kibosh their relationship with what you might call the white, I was going to say majority of the people in London, but actually there's no longer a white majority in London because it's white British people who now make up something like 39% of London. But there's no point in kowtowing to the criminal element, regardless of what colour they are. There's plenty of white people smoking dope, and there's plenty of brown people smoking dope, there's plenty of black people smoking dope, and there's plenty of people with, I don't know, rainbow painted faces smoking dope. Doesn't really matter. The fact is they're smoking dope.